War Eagle Auburn family, welcome back to another edition of E2C Network Live, the place where we get together, we sit down, and we talk about what's going on in the world of Auburn Family Spectrum. Always having the sports here. As you can tell, things are just flying all over the place off here at E2C Network Central. Thank you guys for joining us. As you can tell, I am just all to pieces right now. I'll just be honest with you with this live stream tonight. We're getting started a little late. I have had technicalities galore, messing up my entire setup, how I normally do things. You can hear things going off in the background. So this could be an interesting live stream preview show for Auburn versus Western Kentucky. We're going to try to keep it together for a little bit here tonight and try to break down and talk about this game just a little bit, because I know so many of you are looking forward to this game. I do apologize, though, for the late start and for the technical difficulties that we have been dealing with continuously throughout trying to get this stream started tonight. But despite all that, you guys know the drill. Anytime we get together, we like to do our check-in period. Post where you're watching from, city, state, international, with a War Eagle, and smash that like button now collectively, if nothing else, for pity for me and how things are going for me this evening. Smash that like button like that. Right now, I'd love to hear from some of you to know who is here tonight. And you're going to see me kind of darting all over the place, like checking all my normal apparatus and stuff that I use to monitor the stream. And so you're also going to see me tonight looking down more, because normally I have the cameras right there, but I usually have I'll pull the curtain back for everybody. I normally have my screen right here that decided within the last 10 minutes that it was going to die. Go figure. So I will have to look down at the computer a little bit more tonight to interact with all of you. David, good to see you. Anthony, Dusty, thanks for being here. So fortunately, you guys will have to stare at the forehead a little bit tonight. I hope you'll be able to deal with that. Enough apologizing for me. Enough yammering on about the lamentations of technical difficulties and stuff. Let's look at this particular game a little bit more. As I've told you on most Thursday nights, I've wanted to get another fan from the other side. Couldn't really find anybody Western Kentucky that could speak on this, so it'll be just us tonight. And I would say that I would normally open up the phone lines to any Western Kentucky fans that are out there that may want to call in, but because of the nature of how things have gone with our technical difficulties tonight, we're not going to do that, just because don't want to introduce anything else into the equation that's already there. So Western Kentucky versus Auburn. It is scheduled for 3 p.m. Eastern time on the SEC network. It's an odd time, right? I mean, most of the time when you get those midday games, it feels like it should be 2:30. That's the CBS kickoff, right? We're not the CBS game. But it's just one of those weird things that you didn't think you'd be in your season at a 3 p.m. game, ending your home season against Western Kentucky on the SEC network. I am thankful, though, with the cold temperatures that have swept through the Southeast as of late. It is going to be a much needed reprieve from some of this cold to actually sit out and hopefully some sunshine and deal with that and not in freezing cold night as we all did for Cadillac's first win. Speaking of which, it is Cadillac's second game at home for his young and limited tenure as head coach, as the interim is his third game overall. And I would also add, this is probably your last time to see him as head coach, as far as we know, in the future in Jordan-Hare Stadium. So if you haven't looked into getting tickets, if you haven't thought about coming to campus, you should. We need to pack the house out for Cadillac Williams once more. I'm not kidding myself here. I know that a lot of people probably got other things to do. We're close to the holiday season. And but if you can, get to Auburn, find a ticket, and try to get down there and hang out with us if you can, because it's going to be another fun time watching Cadillac Williams be jumping on sidelined. And I think what we're going to have here against Western Kentucky is a team that is going to be prepared to give Auburn some trouble, especially considering the way that the season has gone for Auburn, especially consider the way that they've had some struggles in areas at times. But the great thing about this game is that it's at home. The great thing about this game is that Auburn's riding a little bit of momentum that it wasn't riding about 2 weeks ago. The great thing about this game is that it's the last one at home as well, so there's going to be a little bit of extra fervor to win one for the seniors, to do good things for them, and to be able to walk out of Jordan-Hare Stadium with a win for some of these guys that have spent a long time at Auburn through a lot. You think about this senior class, and for this game, it's going to be a senior day. They'll honor them out in the field. They've been through 2 head coaching changes, plenty of staff changes, COVID, everything in between. Cadillac talked about this a lot on his press conference this week with the SEC teleconference, and how important it was to him to do something good for these guys, to have them recognized because of what they meant to this program, trying to get through all of the turnover, all of the difficulties that everybody else had to as well with COVID. But a senior class that I think will go down maybe a little bit underappreciated just because of the success or lack of success on the field, but a group of seniors that we're very, very thankful for. It's going to be people like Anders Carlson, who I think, well, technically, wasn't he like honored last year? I don't know how this is going to work for some of these guys that were seniors last year and honored, and now are going to be doing it all over again. So Nick Brahms, John Samuel Shanker came back, I believe. So it'll be interesting to see how all that pans out for scheduling and things like that. So let me start off with a question from everybody, or a question from me to everybody. Why is everyone so scared of Western Kentucky? Can you tell me that? Honestly, like, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be, but I'd love to hear our viewers' perspective on that. Why should I, Kyle, be so scared of Western Kentucky? I hear all the, they've had a good offense, they've had a good year, all that stuff. I'm not negating that, but give me a solid reason as to why Western Kentucky should bring fear into my heart, especially going into a game at Auburn with a lot of other elements at play that are going to be in Auburn's favor. Share that with me in the chat. I'd love to hear you guys' perspective. North Texas whooped Western Kentucky. Well, there you go. That's all I need to know right there. I haven't followed Western Kentucky all season, or Western Kentucky all season, but I also haven't followed North Texas, so I can't really equate that. But historically, North Texas is not usually a good football team. Although, really quick aside here. So I think we even talked about this last night. NCAA football, it's coming back. We all used to play it back in the day when it was regularly updated every year. For some reason, I think in the last one, North Texas was a beast. Like, when I ran the, season play and kind of went through a couple seasons, North Texas was always like in the top 4. So it's really weird how like the computers decided North Texas was going to be the program on the rise. But in real life, not so much the case. So if you're getting beat by North Texas, there you go. I think it's their air raid system or offense. Thankfully, we don't have to play Zappy. Is that the guy for the Patriots that did really well? I know he's in the Patriots now. Is that who we're talking about? Who scored for WKU? We'll look at that in just a little bit. Yeah, so it was it wasn't a rhetorical question, but it was kind of like an obvious. It's their offense, right? So you've got a great offense meeting a defense that's shown a lot of promise this year and is probably a sneaky good defense when it wants to be. I'm not going to sit here and say definitively that they're a top 5 SEC defense or anything like that. But when you got rushers like Derek Hall, Iku Leota when he was healthy, Colby Wooden, and then when you saw what happens when you get your middle of your defensive line and your linebackers given space to do what they can do, how deadly this team can be. And the defensive backs all season have been pretty solid against an air raid offense already in Mississippi State, which I would argue is probably a little bit more formidable because it's got SEC talent behind it. So I hear all the hype. I hear all the, air raid offense, can we stop them? All that kind of stuff. I just don't know if I'm buying into it. And that could be a bad thing for me. That could be me setting myself up for a big disappointment. But I'm just not buying into it. And maybe that's a mistake for me. Brian, good to see you. He broke Joe Burrow's pass touchdown record. Bailey Zapp, that's his name. Or is it Zappe? Zap, I think it's Zap. I see, these records, right? Okay, let me give you the perfect example. I think it's the perfect example for Auburn. The reception, meaning connection record, meaning between a quarterback and a wide receiver, used to be one of the greats, Pat Sullivan and Terry Beasley. Do you remember that was broken a few years ago by Jarrett Stidham, who's from Texas and who got married? And Ryan Davis. Have we forgotten that? Do we look at them as this for the team in that time? They were a great duo. Loved them, the way they were just dominant with each other. But do we look at them as better than Terry Beasley, Pat Sullivan? No, maybe with time. But just because you break a record doesn't mean that you're that good. There's a lot of context missing with that. Who did you play? Who did you do all these stats again? Not taking anything away from Bailey Zapp, not taking anything away from that team. But there's a lot of context missed sometime when we talk about because they broke. And I'm not saying you unbeaten Lakers saying this is the reason why, you're just answering the question and give me things, but I'm just kind of using this as a talking point. When I see those type of people seriously making the argument because they broke this record, that makes them formidable. I'm not buying it. Was the score there? North Texas is 6-5. That to me tells me more than they broke a record. Is their offense better than Mississippi State? So it's a good question to ask. And the only thing that we can use to make that an answer for that is by kind of looking at what we know about each team this year. They lost to North Texas. Mississippi State's lost to a bunch of teams they shouldn't have, probably should have lost to us as well. But Mississippi State has SEC talent. That alone, to me, tells me that they've got the better air raid offense, given who they compete against. Excuse me. I'm not seeing Western Kentucky play anyone that could tell me they are Power 5 quality. Well, let's take a look at that. That's a great, since we're kind of on this discussion point, it's not the typical route I take on a preview show, but let's look at our opponent. Not only am I battling technical challenges or technical difficulties today, I got like a headache that is just not going away in any stretch of the imagination. All right. So they are 7-4 in the year, second in Conference USA. So, all right, look at that. They have played and beaten no one that is ranked, including us. That's pain right there. They have lost to Indiana. It's not a terrible loss. They only lost 33-30. They've lost to Troy. Not a good loss. It was a reasonable score breakdown as well. Lost to UTSA. And then they got walloped by North Texas, as he already brought up. So really all their losses outside of the North Texas one, who is 6-5, if Dusty was right, are pretty reasonable. So this isn't a team that's getting run out of the stadium. And this is also a team that maybe is not like completely running everybody out either. So they've got wins over Rice of 45-10. They've got a win. There's Charleston, or is that Charlotte? 59-7. That's a pretty good one right there. UAB is only 20-17 win. Middle Tennessee State 35-17. It's favorable in their corner. 73-0. There's your blowout of FIU. In Hawaii, they beat 49-17. So there are a few in there where they've kind of run away with it, but those are against teams that you should run away with that. Rob, good to see you. Rob, what are you doing? I'm thankful you gave them away, but so that other people could go. But you're not coming to your last opportunity to tailgate in Auburn? My friend, what's going on? Are you going to Tuscaloosa? That's the big question right there. Our defensive backs will have their hands full, Rob says. Now, listen, that's what we said about Mississippi State. And it really wasn't that bad. The key to beating the air raid is to not let the quarterback get settled. Get a pass rush on them. Get them on their backs a few times. And that's going to be really what determines this. And I think that the Auburn Tigers are going to be able to do that enough against Western Kentucky. Maybe not all the time, but enough. So you're saying they'll get beat by 2 Bama teams? Maybe so. Maybe so. I would hope so. Not just Troy, but the Auburn Tigers. So I just kind of want to start there with that discussion point because I hear all of the expectations about this is a great team. They're 7-4 in the year. I think a lot of that hype came from early on. I'm trying to remember what game it was. They were playing a game. Maybe it was that 73-0 game that everybody's like, oh, Auburn ain't ready for that. We're not going to be able to stop that. And it was in the middle of kind of some of our struggles too. Doesn't look so bad now, in my opinion. Okay, so if you look at ESPN, we are favored 55.3% to 44.7%. And, that's not what you would typically expect this type of game to be for Auburn at home if they were a little bit more formidable this year. So, expectations would be that Auburn would win this more often than not. But this is a team that, if you do not take them seriously, is capable of surprising some people, right? So we shouldn't walk out there and expect to win. But I don't think we should walk out there and be afraid of Western Kentucky in a sense. They are the Hilltoppers. By the way, what is a Hilltopper? Has anybody figured that out yet? Have y'all seen that monstrosity of a mascot that they have? It's like a big red mound, I think is what he's supposed to be, like a mountaintop or something like that. It's just weird. And he does that weird thing that the mascots, when they have like the round bellies, do, where they like shake it around and stuff like that. It bothers me. It bothers me a whole lot. These aren't things that are really pertinent to the game. I just saw myself on my monitor that I watch replay doing the little thing, and I'm laughing at it. See, this is what happens when my normal setup is down and I'm having everything kind of rearranged here. It's yeah. WKU lost to Indiana. Yeah, I wouldn't. This is my opinion, Neil. I wouldn't put so much in that loss to Indiana. It was by 3 points, right? To me, that's probably more in their favor that they only lost. Indiana is not a terrible team. I don't know what their record is, but most of the time, more often than not these days, it feels like you see Indiana fighting teams that they shouldn't be and actually being in the game. Neil says he doesn't see Auburn having a problem with WKU. Now, listen. As I knock my thing, I don't think for a second that we're going to be able to shut out Western Kentucky. This is not a team depth-wise that is built to shut very many high-powered offense down completely. And I guess if you want to start talking about where the concern comes in for Auburn, the concern is really around, will their offense get going? Can our defense contain them? And can our offense match whatever else that they're doing? Losing to Indiana is like losing to App State. I almost forgot that we have two of the greatest mascots in sports in Jordan Hare. We do not have two mascots, Unbeaten Lake. You should know this. We have one mascot, and we have an eagle. He's not a mascot. The eagle's not a mascot. Last win was against Western Kentucky. Well, there you go, Neil. I stand corrected. I just feel like I see Indiana competing more than they should whenever they're on TV, but that's just me. All right, so we talked about a little bit about perception of this game. We've talked a little bit about, kind of some of the other implications. It's going to be cold. It's senior day, last home game. Let's talk about this angle. Does this play a factor into it? Auburn has got to win out to go to a bowl game. Now, there is history and precedent set that a 5-7 team can go, because they have to have 82 teams, I think it is, eligible to play in a bowl game, or else, a 5-7 team can be allowed in or voted in or something like that. But do you really want your odds in favor of that? Like, meaning that has to happen for you to go in a bowl game? So this is a must-win game in terms of Auburn going to some type of postseason. Now, look, I know most of you are saying, but it doesn't matter because of Bama next week. I grant that, but we have to take care of the first things first. And I just realized that's really bright on me. As I told you guys, technical difficulties all day, or getting started tonight. Larry says that we will control the game with our running attack. The way that things are trending with our offense, I would tend to agree with you. And if Auburn can do that and keep their quarterback very uncomfortable, that's going to be a winning recipe right there. We have three mascots, four if you count toilet paper. So with the fourth one, is the third one the peacock, or is that the fifth one? Because in my mind, when I read 3, I said Aubie, Eagle, Plainsman, toilet paper, and peacock now. We've like vicariously stole St. Peter's mascot because, yeah, that was actually one of the best days ever when St. Peter's took down Kentucky and we could just throw all the peacock and, memes at them at the time. Anyway, enough about the mascots. Let's Tiger Eagle Plains. I just saw it come up. TP. I wouldn't put TP there. I'd put peacock there right now personally. But that's just me. Is this the first time we will see Aubie and Big Red on the same field together? No, we played Western Kentucky in the not too distant past. I don't have that numbers in front of me. Normally I have the athletic department stuff ready, but for whatever reason, either I deleted it or couldn't find it. Part of the technical difficulties tonight. And normally I would probably have you that type of information there, but I know they played in recent history because I remember talking about it then, how awful this mascot is. Going to the game, heading to the hotel in Auburn tomorrow. Awesome. So let me say this again for you all, just kind of part of our preview. If you're going to be at Auburn for the game, come to Tiger Walk. Come to the front, right in front of the banner that says Tiger Walk. It's a blue banner this year. And I will be basically usually right to the right of that, about really close to the front, enough for like a camera view so I can live stream it. I would love to meet some of you guys. Don't be shy. Come up, tell me who you are. Would love to say hello. This is what our preview show has amounted to, assessing. I stirred this up, so I take full responsibility for this, but assessing the mascots, which is a fair take to have. Hey, Clint, what's going on? Western Kentucky players have small players. I don't think they'll hold up to our guys. So this conversation happens a lot, and it's a true thing. I've even said it once or twice here, right? Come to Tiger Walk to meet Kyle, stay and talk to me. Wow, ouch. I'm the one that usually gets shots fired before you do. That's hurtful, sir. Yes, when you look at SEC versus Conference USA, the differences are going to be clear. You got SEC talent versus, non-Power 5 talent. It's still going to be good talent, right? It's FBS level. But more often than not, that FBS Power 5 team should beat the Group of 5 team. So, yes, there is going to be some of that at play, but if you have a really good system and a really good scheme, look at App State, you can beat people that you shouldn't. So, I would say all of these things that you look at Western Kentucky, in favor or not in favor of them, you could just say that's a reason to maybe give them a shot, but you got to look at the full picture. Thank you, Corey. I knew someone in the chat would help me out. I'm surprised Clint didn't beat you to it. 03 and 05, both wins. I think we beat them pretty heavily, right? One of the more confusing teams ever. There you go. Yeah, already talked about that a little bit. Bundle up if you're coming. I think the sun's supposed to be out, but if there's any wind with that type of cold, it's going to feel nice and chilly in there. But it's always good to be with the Auburn family down there. All right. So we talked about the impact for the Bulls. Obviously got to win this one. Really important for that. But, we'll can only continue to operate with what we know. And I know the Alabama game is really going to determine everything, but you got to win this one to keep it being an option. Let me give you some numbers for some players to keep in mind. Reed, their quarterback, is 299 of 439 attempts. You gotta keep going tight. 3,548 yards, 31 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. So when you look at his numbers, it's a lot of throwing, over double what Robbie has done. Not that we've really tried to throw it a whole lot. I would say for the amount that he has thrown and only have 7 interceptions, that's decent. It's not great. If he was probably in like the 4 interception range, I'd probably be like, okay, that's pretty good. 3 or 4. 7's like moderate. Like you would think, even at that level of how much they throw, they would have a few less than that. I think this is pretty comparable to where Will Rogers is ratios wise, interceptions to yards or productivity as opposed to interceptions. So keep him in mind. Number 16, I think it's 16, Mr. Reed, their quarterback. He's the guy that you want to put on his back. He's the guy that you want to get pressure on. If you do that, then our defensive backs are going to have a much easier time. Stepping out with an upset alert. I don't know. I think that's a little bit of too much of a step out there. That's just my opinion, though. Their rushing attack. I've seen, this is an interesting name. Robichaux. It's got an X at the end. Robichaux. 73 carries, 496 yards, 3 touchdowns. So clearly the run game is not their forte. This is an air raid offense after all, so you'd expect this. Not really a shock there, right? But you need to make sure that this guy doesn't have a career day, because if he starts having a career day on you, then that's an extra thing that you've got to account for, and you can't put a lot of your focus in on keeping that quarterback being uncomfortable, which is probably what they're going to do, to be honest with you. They're going to probably try to get the running back involved in other ways, throwing it out into the flats, getting him open and using some space. It's what the air raid does with their running backs, right? And then you got Corley, who is their leading receiver, 70 receptions on the year, 953 yards, and 7 touchdowns. So Reed to Corley is the matchup that you really want to keep in mind and want to watch. The only upset will be me of what we've had to go through this season. The Vegas odds, I don't have the Vegas odds, but the ESPN predictor is 55% Auburn wins. So not super favorable, what you would expect for it to be for this typical matchup, but still in Auburn's favor. And I think that's probably right. So what do we glean from all that information I just gave you about their offense? Obviously, keep in mind that matchup. Stop Corley, try to keep him contained. He's trying to break 1,000 yards on the day. He'll probably do that, but keep him contained. Don't let their running back, even though he's not had the best year in terms of stats, get going, and keep pressure on Reed, their quarterback. Make him uncomfortable. Make him get that, ratio of touchdowns to interceptions a lot worse. That's how you win this game in terms of their offense and what we need to do that. So what do you guys think the attack should be for us on offense? We haven't really talked about their defense a whole lot. Not that I have a lot of information in front of me about that. What does our offense need to do in this game? Your first prediction to be successful against Western Kentucky. We've mainly focused on their offense and what we can do as a defense to do that. I'll give you some other information here too. While you answer that, maybe. Points per game. Western Kentucky scores 38 points per game. Auburn scores 22.9. So it's kind of back to what we just talked about, right? Of the scoring could be a concern. Can Auburn's offense keep up with how much the defense is holding back? And it's only holding back their offense. Run, Corey says. Score more than 25 points. So with our 22.9 average, I don't know that 25 is going to be enough. I'll be honest with you. Okay. I like to do predictions in this show. Clint, just tune your ears out if you're watching still. He hates predictions. What is the minimum number? I think Unbeaten Lake has already answered this, but what is your minimum number of points that Auburn can score in this game and still win? What is your minimum number of points that Auburn can score against Western Kentucky and still win? Let me know in the chat. I have a prediction to make. Go home. You're already home, probably watching. 5.5 point favorites over Western Kentucky. That sounds about right with that ESPN predictor of 55%. I know they don't necessarily correlate, but you can kind of extrapolate that and see how those kind of line up expectations wise. All right. So points against, how many points is each team allowing? Western Kentucky is only allowing 21.2 points per game. Auburn is allowing 28.8 points per game. So let's kind of look at that. And this is not a perfect system or perfect map, but in my head, it makes sense. So if you take the points that Auburn scores typically and the points that Western Kentucky allows, not a perfect scenario here, I get that. 22 versus 21. They're going to probably score 22. We'll just say 21 or 22 points. We'll just say 22 based on the math. Points per game for Western Kentucky is 38. Points allowed by Auburn is 28. So averaging that out, you probably are sitting somewhere at about like 32. Yeah, 32 points for Western Kentucky. So if you just run it that way, you would say the score would be 32-22 Auburn. Obviously, that's not going to be the case here because they're playing an SEC school, even who's having a rough year. But you can see how formidable that their offense is. Don't give up in the second half. Well, the guys haven't really done that all this year, even when Harsin was here. So that's one thing, is that they've never given up. They've never fallen back from a challenge. We know they can score late. It's possible. All right, we got some answers coming in. How many points will Auburn need to score to be success to win at the minimum? 2. Well played. Well played. 38. 24. Larry, I think that's a little low. That's not much higher than our points per game. My prediction is that the Cadillac Parade is going to run over their defense. Parade. I didn't know we were having a parade. If I'm going to answer that question, I think Auburn will need to score a minimum of 30 points, provided our defense doesn't just shut them down, which is a very possible thing. We saw them have really good success for some of the game against Mississippi State, an SEC air raid offense, much like this one. So if the defense does that, that changes everything. But if they kind of do what you might expect, be pretty good against them, but kind of bend it sometimes, I think if Auburn scores 30 points, they win the game. Not hard to do at home. Well, it shouldn't be, at least. We'll take the score predictions in just a little bit. Tank versus Hunter, Cadillac Parade. I personally, as much as I want us to continue to run the ball, as much as I want us to continue to utilize those two guys, I would really like to see a little bit emphasis on giving Robbie some time to get in sync with some of his receivers this game. It'll be a little bit easier against probably their defense than it will Alabama's, even though they've had not a great defense this year. I think that's what I would like to see, is a little bit better ratio. I think the ratio was mentioned at his press conference this week, 3-to-1 run to pass. It's been successful for the most part doing that ratio, but I would like to see us give Robbie a little bit more work and a little bit more time to work on his passing game, because we have to have something like that going in the right direction than it has been to beat Bama. And I know that's getting ahead. I know, but this is just how my mind works. All right. We'll keep moving forward. Let me look at some more team stats here. So I try to fight off this Hank. Oh, man. What a day. Total yards, 484 yards per game for Western Kentucky. Whew. Almost 500 yards per game. Auburn somehow has managed 377 yards per game. Honestly, that's more than I thought it was going to be. Pretty even, literally even. 187 yards passing, 189 yards rushing for Auburn average. Dead even. The pass is the heavy thing. 336 yards for Western Kentucky per game. Don't allow their running game to get going in any way, and don't allow their pass to do more damage than that. So looking at all that, that can give you certain ways to look at this game and kind of guess where you're at. Western Kentucky is now, let me pull up their full schedule. They are bowl eligible. I couldn't remember what 7-4 right now. So, they're not necessarily, they're second in the Conference USA, but I would bet that's probably already decided by now if they're sitting at 7-4. So this is probably not a game where they're playing for something extra on top of it. It's interesting, Corey. All right, what else are you looking forward to in this game? let me see what other predictions that we could make. We talked about how many points will Auburn need to score minimum to win this game. I said 30. You guys kind of said some similar things. How many touchdowns will Robbie Ashford score passing wise in this game? What do you think? How many passing touchdowns will Robbie Ashford score in this game? My hope is 2. If Robbie has 2 passing touchdowns in this game, I'll feel really good. 1 to a tight end. Let's get Camden Brown back in the mix. I'd love to see that. Love to see that guy get another, big catch, maybe from like 15 yards out, being a big target down there. That would be really good. 2 touchdowns, 7. Well, if we score 7 passing touchdowns, that's going to be, if you make your extra points, 49 points, I will say we will have won the game. Janice says, keep Caddy for head coach. Bigger conversation than what we're going to have here today, but he has the best opportunity to showcase that he deserves it. Next 2 games. Who else gets an opportunity to coach the team and prove that they need to be in the leading position? No one else. So, Corey, I agree with you that I have a feeling that the whole scare of Western Kentucky is being a little bit overplayed. But I'm not ready to say that we're going to run away with this one. Maybe you'll kind of get that when I make my score prediction here in a little bit. Hold your score predictions. I feel like every time I say the word score predictions, everybody's like, oh, I got to post mine. Wait a second. We're probably not going to go to the end time that we normally do because I do have to run somewhere. And I know we started late, so I apologize for that. But score predictions are coming up in a little bit. Yeah, it looks like it's going to, I'm just kind of running down some other information that they're giving us here at ESPN. So 57 will be the game time with sun. So it won't be terrible, especially depending on if you're sitting on the west side, you're going to have probably a lot more sun. Actually, at that point, the sun will be on the back. So if you're probably better on the east side of the stadium, depending on how you care about it. But yeah. Larry was answering one. Is this for the touchdown? How many touchdowns does Robbie Ashford score? Passing wise? Yeah, maybe. Here's another prediction, maybe not stats wise. Who's the one player that we're not expecting to have a breakout game against Western Kentucky that will have a breakout game? And let me maybe clarify what I'm asking for here. These are the type of game where you're supposed to put them away. These are the type of games where the seniors hopefully get, if they're not already getting playing time, get a little bit of playing time too. So keep that in mind. I'm not asking specifically for, I think, Tank's going to have it. I'm asking for who's the player that Auburn's going to have a great game, offensively, defensively, special teams wise, that we're not really thinking about against Western Kentucky, or that should. Who would you say? I've got one in my mind. I want to see if anybody else guesses the one for me. East Upper Deck will have the warmest seats if there's no wind. Keep that in mind. I don't think it says wind on here. No, it does not. Nope. By the way, I just saw that on this information. Yeah, the line is 5.5 points spread within Auburn's favor. The over-under is 52.5 points. So between the two of them, keep that in mind. Witt says Holden Gerner. It's not a bad pick. That's not who I was thinking of, but that's not a bad pick. I hope that we get to use Holden. Here's the one thing, though, Witt, is that I don't know how long you've been watching, but I talked earlier about us needing to give Robbie some extra time to get in rhythm with these receivers. So if you do what you're supposed to be doing in these games, is you get out ahead of them enough in the first half and then kind of put them out of distance in the third quarter, then Holden could come in for the fourth quarter. If that happens, I'm fine with that. But I would like Robbie to have some significant time trying to get in sync with his guys. Wind will be 6 miles per hour. So there you go. Not really a big deal. Still some wind, though. And if you're up in the upper deck, that'll affect you. This is exactly who I was thinking of, Jackson. Damari Alston. Tank's going to get his yards. Jarquez is going to get his yards one way or another. I think Damari has been set and ready for a big game. I can't remember what the most rushing yards he's had in a game is this season, but he's had a couple of like big runs when he came in. Last week was kind of an anomaly for him. I'm talking the guy gets like 10 carries and he goes probably 80 something yards. I think the kid's ready just to break out. So that's who I'm going to be as the guy we're not thinking of. When you think of names like Robbie, you think of names like Tank, Jarquez, Shanker, Camden Brown. You think of names like Derek Hall. That's what I was, the guys that you weren't talking about. So Damari Alston is who I would think of there. Corey says that Robbie will have a breakout game. I wouldn't count him in that question because he kind of would be expected. Alston. Wish we had a game as cold as the one in Green Bay right now. Is that happening right now? Oh, it is Thursday night. I don't really watch. Well, you have to have like Amazon Prime to watch that. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't. Well, look at there. Every once in a while, the little thing blocks these little spammers, the inappropriate spammers. Yes. Hide those fools. Nobody wants them here. You've seen them before. It was snowing. Oh, I'd love to go to a game in the snow up in the Great White North. So yeah, that's who I would expect to have a breakout game. All right, so we got about 5 minutes left before I need to head off here. Let's go ahead and do score predictions. So right now, I would love for you to post in the chat, what is your score prediction for this game? While you're doing that, let me give you some information again to consider while you're typing it out. But go ahead and do that now. Their quarterback's got a 31 touchdown to 7 interception ratio. So that's for every, trying to do quick math here, so bear with me for a second. For every 4 point something touchdowns, he has an interception. Pretty good. Not a great running attack, not a great running back just based on numbers, but they're part of the air raid offense. Auburn has played an air raid offense in the SEC level and has done pretty decently against it. Their running game has been going a little bit better as of late, and they're favored on ESPN by 55% to win the game on senior day, playing for bowl eligibility. So those are just some of the storylines, some of the stats to keep in mind when you're making your prediction and what will help inform you on that. Rob says he is persistent. This is my FanDuel bet. Auburn 23, Western Kentucky 30. Is that why you sold your ticket? You couldn't stand seeing this? Rob, I'll be the first to say that you were right and I was wrong. If we do our post-game show and I'm eating crow, I was going to say eating eagle, but that sounds morbid. But eating crow, I think and hope that you are going to be very wrong, my friend. Corey says 34-10. Jackson says 38-20. Corey, I don't think you're giving their offense enough credit. Jackson is kind of on the same wavelength with me tonight. I think I'm probably going to give them a few more points than that, but that's kind of the area that I'm thinking of. 34-23. Doable. The line is 5.5 in Auburn's favor. Let me go back to their points per game and look at this again. So they're scoring 38.2 points per game. We're not going to give that up. We're allowing 28.8 points per game. I think we're going to allow 24 points from Western Kentucky when it's all said and done. So 2 touchdowns and a field goal. I have a feeling that they may get off to maybe a hot start, and then we clamp it down. And when we bring the scrubs in, hopefully that's when the last points are scored for them. So I'm going to say 24 for them. Thinking here. I don't want to say 40 points. Did anybody else predict what I predicted? Let's see. No. I'm going to say 38-24 Auburn wins in this one. Kyle, don't think you're giving RD enough credit, respectfully speaking. No. Listen. I truly see this as a game where we will get out ahead of Western Kentucky enough. They might, and they'll fight back a little bit once the scrubs. I feel like even maybe some early trepidation in the game, we're going to get to what this game should be, where we're playing the second and third stringers, the seniors that don't get to play as much. And that's when they're going to score some more of their points. So when I say 24 points, that's not saying that our first stringers gave that up. I think our first stringers will give up at least like 17, just because I think they've got a good enough offense to do that. I think our defense is going to shine in this one. That's just me. All right. We're going to round out here tonight, guys. So go ahead and get last minute comments, questions in real quick. Let me give you a reminder, as we always do at the end of the show. Again, I apologize for the technical difficulties. I've been looking down a lot tonight because my screen died on me and various other things happened at the start of the show. Those of you that have been here from the beginning know how crazy of a start that was. Thank y'all for being here and being patient with me tonight. Schedule for this weekend. Keep in mind, tomorrow night we will do a post-game basketball show from an undisclosed location. And stay tuned for that right after the game. Likely have a locker room tour. Tiger Walk live stream on Saturday. Post-game reaction show after the Western Kentucky game in the early evening. What else have we got on tap? And who knows what else? Just stay tuned throughout the week and follow us on social media for our final home game of the season. It's sad, folks. It's real. It's already over. As bad of a season as it's been, I'm very sad to see it go. Rob says that the D-line has to get pressure on the quarterback, and our DBs struggle against good quarterbacks. Really, I don't really remember us struggling a whole lot this year DB-wise, but maybe I'm wrong. Hopefully that's been corrected. Clint, can you attest to that? Ready for the Memphis game. Oh, you're talking about basketball. Yeah. 28 per day. Random, but not necessarily, but I probably will at least be aware of what's going on in the World Cup. All right, guys. I think that's going to do it for tonight. Thank y'all so much for tuning in to the Western Kentucky preview show. And we have a lot of content coming out for you tomorrow, this weekend. Excited to be back on the plane, sharing the experience with you, because that's what we're all about here, is sharing the whole of the Auburn experience. Thank you guys for tuning in with us, being part of our little family within the Auburn family. Smash that like button on the way out. Until I talk to you again, War Eagle.